Right, I'm on. That's what it says on there. So, hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whatever time of day it is where you are. This is Gary, keep it simple, going live at 8 o'clock on a Wednesday evening in the UK. It's probably Wednesday evening some other places as well, but it certainly is here. And I'm just trying to find myself on here. I might have even got it right, you never know. Let's have a quick click on there, see what happens. That wasn't what I was expecting it to do, but never mind. Yay, that looks like me. Oh, it is, complete with headphones. Well, the car crash is less of a car crash when it starts now, at least it sort of happens. Happens in the way it's almost intended to. Which is, I suppose, after about, I don't know, 9 months of doing this, it's probably just as well. It means that I'm not too old to learn new things. If they stop changing it though, make life a lot easier. But there we go. And so there's only one watching me, which is, funnily enough, me. It's strange being this time in December because it's not Christmas yet, but it's close enough to Christmas that everybody's worrying about it, which is, I suppose, natural, but it just means that so many things are stop and start. It's really weird. So the only one of the few constants is that I'm going to be here and talk a load of rubbish. Or not so much rubbish, it depends. So let's start with what's been going on this week. Loads of subscribers and things starting up on my channel this week, which is good. And the viewing figures have really shot up, which is even better. If we can just get a few more, we'd be well away. So keep up the good work, people. And even the lives are doing quite well. They're not doing so well at the time, but they're all right as a broadcast thing afterwards. People seem to like watching them later on, obviously, at times to suit themselves, which is fine. As long as they're watched, I don't care when, really. So, schedule for today. Not a lot, really. I'm not expecting a huge turnout, because I know a couple of people are involved in doing other things, and it is that time of year. That was the other thing I was going to say about this time of year, because people get involved in, obviously work, but also going to parties and having a good time, or preparing for parties and having a good time, or whatever. It's difficult to say. But anyway, having a look at various things. Had some nice comments, hence the more chilling and nice comments as the title of this one. Had some really nice comments this week, done some interesting videos, apparently, because the comments have said so. I mean, I thought they were interesting before I started, but there we go. Just trying to think what they were now. Just when you're pumping them out. Oh yeah, 499 videos on the channel now. So by hopefully the end of today, well, this one will be the 500th. So yeah, it's good. And been on the channel now for, I think it's 2 years now, officially. 21 it started. Yeah, so that's also quite relevant. It's almost, I think it's actually gone past its birthday, because that was an October thing. I'm pretty sure it was. I'll have to look it up one day and then throw a party or something. And who have we got? Anybody saying hello yet? No. Let's have a look at the software. It says everything's working all right. Oh, actually, you know, it says the bitrate's really down, 1.7 megs. It's lower than recommended. We recommend you do something, but whenever I click on that, it never does anything, so I'll ignore that. If in doubt, don't fix it, because it ain't broken. Even if they say it is, it would appear. Right. The videos that are around, which normally we have a chat about, are... there was an interesting one by Techmo. Did a thing on Saturday which was quite good. Let's have a look. In case you're wondering, I'm not my normal sparkling self today. Got a bit of a headache, to be honest, but I didn't want to not do this. So let's have a look. Recordology has been very prolific with his videos. This is done a cruiser teardown, and that was a day ago, well, as in yesterday. He's done something about radios, which I haven't listened to yet, and he's got one about retro games, which I was going to watch, but I got interrupted by doing something else. Went down the dump, as in took some stuff down the local site. So look, what else have we got here? I was talking about the Techmo one, which I did think was good. It's Techmo on there. And his one was, oh yes, the mini disc player. It's interesting if you have a look at that one. Won't give you any spoilers, but the thumbnail tells you something along the lines of where it's going to go, which is it's quite depressing, really. When you see how they do these things, sometimes you think, well, why on earth do they do that? Which was a question that he asked. And there's nothing else that's been particularly thing. Let's have a look at what Westlife's one's done. I'm not sure. I've been so busy this week. Well, believe anything, but actually I have that. Trying to find the memory to go with it, it's not that easy. Let's have a look. Westlife. He did. Oh yes, that's right. He did. The amazing Sonic fully automatic record player, which I haven't watched yet, but he's had 25,000 views in a day, so that's doing all right. Last week's one was all about noisy printers, which was good, but it shows me there that I've watched it, but I haven't, so I don't know what's happened there. I shall have to go and watch that one because it looks quite interesting. I like a Westlife video. He comes at it from a slightly different angle to most people, and yeah, so it's good. Right, anything else that's on there? No. The ones I've been doing this week primarily have been about records and trying to get some reasonable response from the 78s. Now, I've seen that. I just shut down the wrong thing. Multitasking is always fun, but when you hit the wrong button, it all goes wrong. Yeah, the ones I've been doing about trying to get some decent sounds out of the 78s. I've still got something like 60 or 70 78s. Now, I reckon that the lady who had them was a keen collector, because some of them have been shipped around the country from various places, and they got address labels on them and purchase requests and things on them, which is all well and good. But I reckon that the equipment she used to play them with wasn't the best that she could have had, because well, if you've heard me Mersey Dotes and Dozy Dotes, you'll know that it's there, but it's not exactly hi-fi. And one of the ones that I've got, I was looking through the list last night. Hello, who's that? I've got some Doris Day and some various other big names, American names and things on these. Oh yeah, Bing Crosby and all that sort of thing. And it would be a real shame if they come out the same as the Mersey Dotes and Jersey Dotes. I did try doing the Mary's Boy Child one again using the AOA, and that didn't work so well this time. I mean, yes, it worked well. It worked as well as it did in the video, but obviously the record isn't that much better than the Mersey Dotes, because it's still pretty scratchy and doesn't sound that good. So I'm not sure what I can do about that, to be honest. The cost of a stylus to go with the turntable I've got is £36 plus £17 postage, which is more than I'm willing to pay to play bad records, and that's the trouble. I have heard, who was it? Let's have a look. I want to get the name right. Spinning My Wheels has put some 78s up on his channel, and he's got some lovely sounding 78s, but they were brand new, never been played, and so it proves that they can sound good, and it just also proves that mine don't. So that must be the records. But when you look at them, they've not been stored properly. There's some really nasty bruising on it and stuff. So anyway, that's as far as that goes. I'm still on the wrong flipping channel. I'm meant to be on my live, but I'm not. I'm on my shorts. Oh yeah, has anybody noticed the shorts? The one I did last week, Never Damage Your CDs Again, 1,900 views. And even better than that, How to Use Your Cassette Recorder Piano Keys, 2,800 views. That's pretty good. And the Audiophiles one, 1,100. So thank you, people. Keep up the good work. Put it around and everything else. That'd be great. Now I'm still trying to get into here. As I say, it's one of those things. Dunk. Let's see if we've got anything there. No. Right. Okay. So, well, there must be somebody there because it says 4, and I know I'm one of them, but that means there must be another 3. And there we go, Andrew. Hello, Andrew. How are you doing? He says, "Hi, Gary. Just managed to get hold of a Tascam SD card rack-mounted audio recorder, professional 4-track recorder, which I will use for vinyl recordings. It records to 24-bit. Well, that sounds rather nice." It's the sort of thing that sort of, well, I mean, you'll be able to use it for almost anything, duplicating and everything there, so that's wonderful. Saw an interesting video, which you might have seen coming up, sort of relevant to what you've got there, and it's got a picture, I can't remember what channel it was on, but it's got a picture of the DVD for Cocoon, which was a Oscar-winning film from the 80s. And the guy is saying, and this is something that we touched on the other week, about if you've got the physical media, you've got the film. Because he was saying that if you try and find Cocoon now, it's not being streamed, you can't buy it, the DVD doesn't exist, and all that sort of thing. So he was saying that also, just because you've got a digital copy of something doesn't mean it's going to be there all the time. They can take them down even if you have paid for them. And the other thing is you may not get the version that you want. One of the films, I think it was French Connection he was talking about, and he was saying that they've censored it, and all the copies that are on the cloud that people have got, supposedly, have all been replaced by the censored version. So unless you've got the original Laserdisc or VHS or whatever, because it was an old film, you haven't got the proper version as it was released, the one that you bought even when you bought the digital copy, because it's all the censored one, which isn't so good. Stephen, hello, how are you doing? It's so we've got 2 now, that's good. The thing I was saying about the 78s, going back to what I was originally talking about, the Crosley really is, it's not what people say it is, but it isn't very good, is my opinion. It's a duck, yes. It's you've got to be crackers to buy one. Yes, that's the way. The one I've got, which is I was looking just before I came on here. They still sell things that look the same. It's got a very nice wooden cabinet. It would look okay in a lot of people's living rooms, just sat on their sideboards, if they have such things nowadays, or shelving units, whatever. But the lid doesn't open very well, which is a problem. I say it doesn't open very well. The catch is stiff and it doesn't go very high. It only opens to about a 40-degree angle. So you've always got the problem of trying to get stuff in and out of it. But if it's high enough, that's fine. But you're going to hit you can't get to the arm of the tone arm very well, because, well, there's a lip around the outside, and then you've got the lid in the way. So trying to change the stylus or even clean the stylus is a pain in the backside. It runs at 45 RPM, but the motor sounds okay. 33 RPM, the motor sounds all right, but it does sound. And then at 78 RPM, it sounds like a flipping buzzsaw. You could be chopping trees down with the motor running, making that noise. And when it's playing back, this is the bit that I find quite grieving about it, because it plays back fairly pleasantly. And you put a record on it and it plays back the record, and it sounds, it's a cheap player, it sounds all right, sort of thing. But the way it does that is they've got really naff speakers in it which can't do high frequencies, does very woolly low frequencies, and so they send it a signal which is straight out of the cartridge really not very good. And that not very good signal manages to sound okay by the time it's gone through these god-awful speakers. But if you try and do anything else with it, like I was, you're screwed, because the electronic signals are really naff. Stephen says, no surprises that it's not very good. It is, after all, the cheapest of the cheap. Your AOA is the same as my Dual and an ATLP 60 and the true budget level turntable. That's right, yes. It's it does the job quite well, the AOA, and so you can't really complain at that. But what I'm going by the hand Haypin, or however you want to pronounce it, turntables. They should be okay, and with a decent cartridge on them, they should do. But they're not. But you could get around that if only the electronics was proper. But because if you watch there's a teac that Westlife has done a review on, and it's got the same turntable. It's the BSR based Haypin type thing, and but it's got a properly set up cartridge that is impedance matched. So they've actually bothered to set the EQ up properly for the cartridge, and that one sounds very nice. And most of the music centres from the 70s, 80s and 90s were quite capable of sounding very nice. It's just that the Crosley one, that particular Crosley one, is not very nice. It sounds, there's a word, starts with S, and it's very difficult to try and do anything else with it. I did spend some time trying to, but the the up and down of it is that you're better off using the AOA at 45 RPM to play a 78 than you are using the Crosley to play a 78, and you're better off using the Crosley at 45 to play the 78 and then just speed it up, because you don't get so much of the problems that you get otherwise, which is that buzzsaw motor. Just thought I'd spell it out, really. It's like I say, it's depressing. The rest of that particular Crosley I've got doesn't work, so now I've decided that it's no good. Even though I bought a cartridge for it, I'm not going to do anything else with it, really, because it's more trouble than it's worth. Yeah, everything budget from the 70s sounded better than the current budget. Even the Amstrad stuff was better than the current really cheap stuff, because although we've all heard of the Mug's Eiffel, the actual electronics was quite good, and if you didn't expect much of it, it didn't give you much, but it didn't lie to you. It never promised much. The Mug's Eiffel, well, only a mug would take any notice of that, but it did actually play. I mean, I've seen I've actually played with one of the Amstrad linear track turntables, music systems, and yeah, it was actually not awful. But like I say, it was a lot cheaper than the competition at the time, but it did do what it said it was going to do. It played records adequately, but not well. The Crosley, it lies to you. Even as it's sat there playing a record quite well, it's lying to you. You put headphones in and it hurts your ears, whereas it sounded all right before you put the headphones in. And also, I can't get rid of, there's a hum loop. I have to, when I do anything with that Crosley, I have to use the computer without plugging it in, because it's a laptop. And if I plug it in, I get a hum loop. And I don't know, I haven't bothered trying to get rid of it, but it's a bit of a pain. Right, Andrew says, I remember my dad's garage deck sounded all right back in the 1970s and 80s, part of the GEC Music Centre. And you've now got an 80 LP 120X USB, which is amazing. Yes, I was looking at one of those a couple of minutes ago. They appear to be pretty good. Not the cheapest turntable in the world, but yeah, cheap is cheerful, and the Audio Technicas are good. Stephen says, I meant to send you a technical data sheet from our first tape deck. It was very budget from Japan, but the specs were all right. I think, when we're talking about budget, I think there is a difference between budget as in made to a low price, and budget as in made to a low specification and therefore a low price. I think that's the difference between the Crosleys and stuff like the music sets we were talking about before, because you can make something not expensive but good by just not putting so many features on it, and or by you don't need to have a metal switch pusher when you can have a plastic switch pusher, provided you can get a cheap plastic switch pusher. That sort of thing. You can cut the weight down. I mean, one of the things that a lot of people talk about quite aggressively on some of the Facebook things is how modern stuff is all crap because it's all been made down to a price. And then they moan about things like the teac 1200, which of course is far too expensive. But if you go onto any of the websites that have got prices from, if you go on the 70s and 80s prices, they were horrendously expensive in comparison to today. An FM radio was about 150 quid in today's money, just for a basic FM radio. And if you wanted one that was posh, you were looking at £300 or £400. You look at the price of a video recorder. When they first came out, the first one I had was 750 quid, and that was in 1980. Now, if you put that into the inflation calculator from the, you're looking at about £2,500–3,000 in today's money, which was a lot of money. Let's see what I meant to say. Yeah, so I think you have to be aware that what we're talking about now is really, really cheap. Andrew says, when I sold hi-fi as a Courage Saturday boy in the 1980s, I don't remember Matsui or Amstrad gear being as bad as some of the Chinese stuff today. Oh, that's because you had yeah, the Amstrad stuff. The Matsui stuff I never had much time for. Having said that, I worked for Mastercare for about 3 months, and part of the Dixon's Currys group. And so we had the things, the Matsuis. If you got the right, this was because they were just buying stuff in. They were doing the TX9 TV as a Matsui thing. Matsui was I think it was Hanari was the manufacturer of the video recorders. If you ever got involved with Matsui or there was the other brand which was done by Matsui, I think it was Dixon's. No, Currys. There was another one which was done by Dixon's, which was actually they were the same thing. They were absolutely awful. They made the Amstrad video recorders look like Rolls Royces in comparison. By which, hang on, I've got a cough. Sorry. Yeah, I used to repair the stuff because I used to take in any brand, and I used to get the manuals, and you'd get a manual for a particular model of a Matsui or one of those things, and the manuals cost at least £15 more than anybody else's manuals, so that was a pain. So a manual used to be 35 quid, but they were 50 quid for the Matsui ones. And when you got the manual, the chances that what was in the actual machine matched the manual, very slight. So probably about 50% of it would be about right, but never the same 50% from one machine to another. And it was Seisho, that's the one. Yeah, awful stuff. But if you bought the Seisho TV that was the 20-inch TV, it was £199, and the Ferguson TX9 chassis, same TV set, exactly the same TV set, was £350, I think it was. So it was £150 more expensive, and it was exactly the same TV except for the bit. There was a sort of on the front panel where the buttons were. There was a sort of a padded thing lifted up. So the only difference was this flap. The actual TV itself, electronically, was exactly the same, and it wasn't a bad TV. It was the one that Andre Previn used to advertise, and yeah. So you never knew what you were getting with Prince and Seisho and Matsui, but with the Amstrad stuff, you sort of, at least it was consistent. It was either rubbish or it was okay. The Amstrad CB radios were excellent, and the computers were okay. Let's see, Andrew says, all TVs had to be manufactured in the UK then, I think. No, that's not strictly speaking true. I'll tell you what there was. There was a size limit thing. When I was at college, 1973-74, there was you wouldn't find a big Japanese TV in the UK. And Sony brought out the KV 1300 UB, and that was it was a smart but very small set because it was 13-inch, and that was great. It wasn't a PAL set because there were two problems. the Sony wouldn't pay for the PAL license, and the so the original Sony KV1800 and the original Sony 1300 UBs, they were basically NTSC TV sets modified to work on PAL, but they had to be modified in such a way that they did not use the PAL facility of colour correction in any way whatsoever. They actually had tint controls, which they advertised as being a useful feature, because there was only one other TV manufacturer that had a tint control, and that was ITT. And the tint control on the ITT was literally an adjustment of the colour balance, as in you could adjust for wear and tear on your tube effectively, or your preference in the colour of the people that you were looking at. But on the Sony, it was literally altering the phase angle. This is why, do you remember I did this video a little while ago about positive and negative bias, and why you shouldn't call it negative bias? When you deal with colour TV sets and things, you have adjustments, and you have to set positive and negatives, and on the you alter the phase relative to the reference, positive or negative. And so things like that, if you're a bit of a pedant like me, and if you want to try and get these things right, that's how it can get you in trouble if you use the wrong words. Because with the original Japanese sets, the Sony sets, you could alter the tint, because they had to. What they actually did, they took the PAL signal in, unflipped the flip, and then ran it as NTSC, but at 4.43, and that was all good. And then they changed it, so they said, oh, they're going to let them in up to 18 inches, and that's why the first big TV that Sony did was 18 inches, and that was still, the original one was still the non-PAL TV set. And then they brought out the 1810, which was a push-button set, and I believe that was PAL, but I wouldn't guarantee it. But that was the one that had a really sophisticated power switch mode power supply, and they used to blow up, and it used to take about 3 or 4 attempts to repair them, if you were lucky. They actually issued a complete kit of parts, and you could fit the complete kit of parts, and it'd go bang again. So then you'd order up another set of complete parts, and as time went on, they added more and more bits, switches, capacitors, and they had a component called an SGS, silicon controlled, not an SCR, an SCG, silicon controlled gate, I think it was, I don't know. Anyway, it wasn't an SCR, but it was basically the same thing. You could turn it on and you could turn it off, whereas an SCR you can just turn on. And that was really very novel, very expensive. That component, I think, at the time, trade, was about £14 each, whereas the transistors used in normal TVs were, for the switch mode power supplies, were about £4. So they were very expensive. And when you had to use 3 or 4 of them, it was a real pain in the backside, because how do you charge the customer for it? And it wasn't even a case of being a bad engineer. It was a case of it depended how that particular set went. In the end, they stuck what were called crowbars on them, because when the regulator went up the chute, it used to wipe out half the circuitry in the TV. So what they first did, I think it was I can't remember if it was first or last they did, but they put a crowbar on it, which meant that you had in this case an SCR, which you triggered by being volt sensitive. So when the regulator went wrong and it put out too high a voltage, this SCR was triggered, which literally shorted out the power supply, and hopefully saved the rest of the set, because they were very expensive TV sets. It was all good fun, and I worked for an army-based SSVC at the time, and we had a few of those come in needed repairing, and yeah, that was the main time I got involved with one of those. I repaired one once, but a friend of mine had one, and he was showing me all about it because he worked for SSVC as well. Services Sound and Vision Corporation, if you were wondering, it was a non-profit making organisation, supplied the Army, Navy and Air Force with equipment, and I had to sign the Official Secrets Act, and I probably shouldn't have told you that. It's the other thing about, if I tell you, I will have to kill you, so you're all dead. Yeah, that was fun working for them, because you got to see some really weird and wonderful things going around in the army camps, and so the equipment they had, multi-standard equipment and all sorts of things, and video recorders that got thrown into ponds so that they could get away, and then you had to try and make it work again. Reel-to-reel video recorders, as it happened, on that particular one. Right. What was the other thing? Now, starting on there. Yeah, the Matsui and that were awful, but as I say, and also one or two of the Matsui TVs were made by Toshiba, and they were full spec Toshiba TVs as well. So you could buy a brand new Toshiba TV cheap with Matsui, but what you didn't know, you see, you could go into that shop, we'll say in April, and buy that TV at £199, and it would be the Ferguson TX9, and it was a good set, as advertised by Henri Previn, but with a slightly different flap on the front. Or you could go in there the following week and you could buy the same £199 TV and find it was made by Toshiba, and it wasn't the same as advertised by, but the Toshiba ones were very good as well. Or you could go in there and you could find that it was made by Hinari, or one of the really, I say Hinari, I'm not sure it was them, but there was some really cheap generic Chinese companies and Korean companies and whatever, and they were awful. And all the Seisho, Matsui and all that cassette video recorders were all made by this really cheap company, and they were crap. I actually used to, on my video library, I used to ask people what brand of video recorder they had. If they said Amstrad, then we knew we had to be careful. If they said Matsui, Seisho, etc., Triumph, we knew that it was even more of a worry, and you had to check every tape they brought back, because if they brought back a tape, there was a good chance it was not going to work, because the pinch rollers used to go funny, and they used to drag the tape through. It would play fine, but it'd drag it through, and it would fold the tape, crease the tape, so it would never play again. It was literally a tape eating machine. Gold Star and Thompson too. Now, interestingly, Gold Star, yes, they were quite good at the time that I'm talking about. But Thompson, of course, were part of the 3Ts thing. I remember when Gold Star and Samsung used to be crap, or par, or below par at least, and they seem to be near the top. Yeah, Gold Star, when Samsung first came out, they came in very low price with their TVs, but they were always better than what they were priced at. But they weren't. They were trying for market share. They weren't trying for quality. They weren't after Sony's crown. They were just wanted to be better than rubbish. They were like the SKC tapes. I do remember, because I worked for a company called Platts at the time, and we had a huge stock. But we were doing Bang & Olufsen and Toshiba, and now, I mean, if you want Bang & Olufsen, if you want to know about crap equipment, Grundig, Philips, and Ferguson, Toshiba, those were the ones that we sold in Platts. And which ones do you reckon were the best? Oh, we also did Sony. But which ones do you reckon were the best out of that? Well, you'd have thought Grundig would have been good, and they were expensive, but they weren't that good. I did do some stuff with some Bang & Olufsens. They were troublesome, to say the least. Most of the European brands were troublesome. The British brands were awful in terms of they weren't just troublesome, they just went wrong. They just flat out. Yeah, we actually had one delivered to the SSVC. We had about 6 or 7 Pi sets delivered every week, because Pi being a British brand, the army liked buying British because it looked like they were being patriotic and supporting the home market and all that. So we had these sets delivered, and there would be knobs missing off the front. And you say, well, that's, is that a big problem? You can always. So we had to have boxes of knobs to put on these TV sets, which were brand new, fresh out of the box. They weren't made for us specifically, they were just ones that we had ordered. But we also had ones with the entire boards missing. They were empty. How did they get out? A bit like the story about the British Leyland cars that used to come out with Coke cans in the doors and paint missing and stuff. So it was one of those things where it was very much a weird market, because you'd buy yourself something like a Ferguson TV. Yeah, no quality control. That's the thing. You'd buy yourself a TV from a proper manufacturer, and they've already spent a lot of money designing it and making it, and if you got a good one, they were great. But the chances were the one you had was going to go wrong in 3 months' time, which is why most people rented them, of course. And that was purely down, most of the time, to bad soldering. And whoever thought it was a good idea to put a very heavy transformer, possibly the size of this box, so you got a line out of a transformer, which is supplying a 25-inch tube with lots and lots of volts, a very heavy lump of iron, and you hold it in with 6 or 7 solder joints and hold it in on a board that's up and down rather than laying flat, because they used to stick them wherever they wanted to. And Friday afternoon, yeah, I think you'll find that the week in most of the European factories was dated Monday, because Monday, you wouldn't want a Monday set. Monday, day after Monday, and then it'd be the day after Monday, but before Friday, and then it'd be the day before Friday, and then it'd be Friday. I think there was, you were lucky to get the good ones, rather than, I can remember having you'd expect Bang & Olufsen to be good, but a video recorder that actually the guy complained about because it switched on to record something when he was out, and when he got home the tape hadn't moved. Everything had fired up, but the tape hadn't moved, and it hadn't even protected the tape. It had literally worn the tape. There was a helical scan line through the tape. The heads had gone. The drum had lost all its shine, and it had sat there for sort of like 8 or 10 hours because it was a V2000 machine, and it had literally scrubbed the tape through to the plastic and cut through the plastic. How is that possible? Stephen says, I have to say the Philips stuff we had and have works well as long as it works. We've generally been lucky though. I personally I never had good luck with Sony. No, well, this is the thing, isn't it? That's sort of what I'm saying. The Philips stuff in the 70s, they used to put a NiCad battery in the tuner section. They're only sets that had them. I never really understood what they did, because I didn't. The tuners were a black box component. You just change the whole thing if you change the tuner. But they used to have, for the memories, for the presets, they used to have this battery, and like I say, nobody else had it, and they had the screw-in type adjustments. So their tuners didn't look any particularly different to anybody else's. But you'd go on holiday, come back, and the TV wouldn't work because you'd turn it off for 2 weeks. The NICAD would have gone flat when they were getting old, and so the TV wouldn't work. It wouldn't tune into anything, and you had to change the NICAD in order to get the thing to work. And that's all it was just the NICAD. And they were, I've still got some in the toolbox somewhere. They were about that big. So what's that, about an inch? Yeah, just a dumpy little can NICAD. They cost £5, which we're talking 1980s prices. So you could say they cost £15 in today's money, and you had to fit them. So it was a call out charge, which was £25. So you're looking at £30 in 1980s prices to change a battery, which didn't need to be there. Which reminds me about the if you see the Techmoan video, you'll see there's a correlation between that and that. As far as Sony's concerned, the Sony equipment was always, as far as I was concerned, very good, unless you got the stuff that was made in Wales. We actually there was a production plant in Wales for Sony, which was distributed certainly in the UK, and that was interesting quality stuff. In the 70s we had ITT TVs. Yeah, they were actually very good. ITT, they had quite advanced technology in their TVs. But I had this. I bought a Sony. I'm just trying to think what year it was. 1982, 83. Bought a Sony Profil, and £1,000 worth of TV if you bought the whole system. It came in component form. Never did buy the tuner because I had video recorders. But the actual set itself, the big bit with the glass, 20-inch, that was a magical TV set. But our one, the tube lasted about 6 months longer than the guarantee on it, which meant it had gone soft, which was a bit of a pain.
Still got the speakers, though.
But yes, as my wife just said, we've still got the speakers. They are absolutely brilliant sound on the speakers, even though they are only the size of the sort of thing you'd buy for a computer. They do not sound like computer speakers. They are brilliant. They look and feel, except they feel very heavy, like the sort of thing you just plug in and pay £19 for. But I can assure you they didn't cost that those days. Those, I think they were £50 as part of when you bought the system. £50 for 2 speakers, which in those days was a lot of money for TV speakers, but they do sound bloody good. My brother had an ITT set. Those are the ones that were interesting. When you hit the remote button, no, she didn't say that. Stephen says I thought your wife said we still have payments on it.
Oh no.
No, we actually we replaced this. Yes, we use them every day. We replaced the TV actually with a JVC Super VHS TV, which is absolutely brilliant. Now Andrew says we had the big Toshiba FST with Fisher VHS and a Sony C6 Betamax. Well, you see, there you're living the dream there, Andrew. The Toshiba FSC. Hello, mate, got Toshiba. Yeah, they were brilliant. And I went on some courses for those. And that's what I was going to say about Thompson, because Thompson was part of the 3Ts group. You had Thompson, Toshiba, and Thorn. And they had a factory in France, and they made video recorders. So if you bought a Thompson, which is basically a German or French brand, or if you bought any of those other ones, Thorn EMI. They were made, a lot of them in because in those days, of course, we were in Europe, and in order they set up this factory in Europe because of the tariffs, because the European Union had prohibitive tariffs on the video recorders and stuff. You had to pay for the feature. So by building them in Europe and then just marking them up with the appropriate badge, bed, I can't remember the one that I did the video on, which all the smoke was, that's a 3T one, but they were different, but they were the same. So they weren't just a case of changing the badges; they were JVC clones, but different models, and some really sophisticated stuff came out there. I loved going on I'll tell you what, we used to go on the Toshiba video recorder courses, and they used to play the Faulty Towers tapes during break time. So most attention was paid during break, and it was a good laugh. I used to enjoy doing the Panasonic courses as well. They were always fun. Anyway, that was a time gone by. I don't even know if they do that sort of thing now. They used to, if you were a dealer, or if you worked for a dealer, they used to, by having the account with them, all the company had to pay that you worked for was your wages. The actual course was free. All right, the later Thomson Ferguson Hi-Fi VIS, is that VIS or VHS? Machines were actually quite good. I had one of the original JVC SVHS, which was brilliant. A friend of mine bought the Ferguson version of, it was the very tall one. It was 1983. It was the first really soft touch super one, and I think he paid about £900 for it. And that was brilliant. That really was good. That had one of the first ones to have playback at double speed and all that sort of thing. 6 heads, and it looked so complicated. It looked like you could fly a spaceship with it. But they had on the JVC one, you had all the buttons, but on the Ferguson one, they had a flap that came up and hid half the buttons. They did give it was just before the HQ came out, and at that time I actually had an SVCR, not an SVHS, but an SVCR, which was a Grundig thing, and that really did have a superb picture on it, because it was the old Philips 1500 updated to 1700 and then Grundigized, and if you got one that was working, and I would never recommend them for any other reason other than the fact that the picture was good, but if you had one that was working, and if you had a tape that hadn't got mangled, it really did produce a really smashing picture, better than anything else at that time. And you got 4 hours out of it, SVCR, but it was a twist on the Philips thing. But you couldn't, at the time, on a CRT TV, you couldn't tell the difference between it and the original that you'd recorded it from. But play a tape 3 or 4 times, and then you'd find that you have to take the lid off to clean all the guides and stuff, because the tracking used to go out, and being a Philips based or Grundig based machine, they always did things the complicated way. It was never fun working on those, because most of the video recorders that the SSVC had originally were, when they went for cassette, they went for Philips. So I had a lot of dealing with Philips. It was not the happiest time in my life, I can tell you. But it was all new technology at the time. But the VHSs which came through, which obviously all the ones I saw at SSVC, they wouldn't dare sell or supply JVCs. They had to be Fergusons, and it was always troublesome. In fact, we used to have to, not troublesome for such, but we had the problem that although they were separate companies, Ferguson, JVC, all that, and we know that they ended up making them in the same factory, you had to be careful when you were talking to the technical departments, that sometimes they got upset if you forgot which one you were talking to. and then later on they started being a bit better about it, and they would give you the information that was relevant to yours, but you had to know that the Ferguson one wasn't necessarily exactly the same as the JVC. They might have changed a component because they wanted it to do something slightly different, or buttons were removed, or functions. Because of the EU thing, the Fergusons had different functions than the exact same model JVC one, and that was very often down to the remote control. They disconnected functions of the remote control. So if you've got a JVC remote control or a Ferguson remote control and you point at a JVC machine, you could liberate the functions that either machine didn't otherwise have, which was always entertaining when you were dealing with somebody who knew what they were talking about. Oh no, that machine can't do that. Boom. Oh, how did that happen? And I rewired a couple of remote controls so that I got the functions I wanted rather than the ones they gave me. But that's just an aside. We've all done things like that, haven't we? 7 watching. There's only 2 likes. So you can all go and click on the like. Don't forget, it all helps. It makes YouTube think that I've got a channel worth having if people click on the like button. I had the report come through today, and it says you've had more likes than ever before. So right, great, okay, carry on. So please do click the likes. It does make a difference. The algorithm gets all soft and fuzzy when it thinks that people like what's happening, and it offers it to more people, and then your CTR goes up, which means that more people get to see it, which is good. Right. I think possibly, unless we got anybody got anything to say that would actually be, or any questions or anything, any suggestions for videos or stuff. I did actually do the second video on the. Oh, hang on. Steve says I turned up the phono volume on my amp and started the turntable techniques, and I can't hear a difference in the hum. I wish that heart wasn't there. Right. I turned up the phono volume on my amp and started the turntable techniques, and I can't hear a difference in the hum. Well, that's good then, because you don't want it there. So rumble on that must be very low. Yes, I would have thought it would be. And I know you're very sensitive to rumble, so that's yes, because you just got that new system, didn't you? I think rumble is something that a lot of people accept, but again, it shouldn't be that difficult to not have it. One of the things that I've found to be a problem with that. Yeah, one of the things I found to be a problem with that Crosley is not, well, the rumble's a problem, but it's the clacking and clanking of the tone arms. It's getting dragged around the record, which is not good. You don't want a clanky tone arm. Yeah. Anyway, right. So, if there's anything else anybody would like to talk about, then I'm more than happy to give it a go, or I shall wind it up now, and I shall say thank you very much for coming, and thank you for supporting the channel. Do spread the word. Anybody who's listening to this on the podcast and things,
You might not be doing a live next Wednesday.
But next Wednesday I might not be doing a live, and yes, because various things are happening. In fact, because I've got that's right. Yes, I'm going to. I've got a Christmas party to go to next Wednesday, so I might not be in any fit state. No, I believe a 3 mil stylus requires more weight on it. Maybe that would reduce the clanking. You could well be right. As I said, I'm not going to. Well, I tried getting the flip stylus for that Crosley, but they weren't available at the time, and they seem to be more than happy to just send out those things. But I'm not going to do anything with that Crosley anymore. But I'm not going to pay 50 quid for a stylus for the 3600. That's just silly. It seems to be they only come from America, and it's just not worth it because the records I've got aren't good enough. If I go through and find there's a couple of good ones, maybe I will, but at the moment I'm not. But yeah, I'll see what I can come up with that. Anybody got any other suggestions on directions to take the channel or whatever? I'm asking. I mean, I may not take any notice, but if you give me suggestions, then like I say, the last video I did, which was the Crosley Bedder at 45 or 78, was as a direct result of the previous one and the questions asked. So, yeah, Stephen, it's your fault. Yeah, so that's a truly interactive channel for you. Right, okay then. So I shall at that point then say thank you very much for coming. Thanks for supporting. May not be alive next week. I may not. I may not be alive next week. You never know. That'd be a good party if it is. Anyway, so thank you very much. If I don't see you next week, then I'll say Merry Christmas to you all, Happy Hanukkah, and all the other various celebrations that are around this time of year. Peace to the world, and may you all be safe and secure. And genuinely, thank you very much for coming. And I've gone all fuzzy. Why have I gone all fuzzy? That must be down to the bit rate. And yeah, thank you very much for coming. And as I say, have a good time. Stay safe, and I'll see you soon. Cheers. Bye bye. End stream.